Hello again, John Stott. Paul on trial before Felix. He has been accused by the lawyer, as it were, the expert on law, that has been bringing the Jewish charges against Paul to Governor Felix. And now Paul is making his self-defense. This is Acts chapter 24, verses 10 to 21. As soon as the governor motioned for him to speak, Paul launched in his defense. He also began with a captatio benevolentiae. My Latin is very rusty. Although it was considerably more modest and moderate than Tertullus had been. And this means basically a introduction, a friendly or benevolent introduction. I know that for a number of years you have been a judge over this nation, so I gladly make my defense. He then proceeded to refute the prosecution's allegations one by one. First, he was emphatically not a troublemaker. You can easily verify that no more than 12 days ago I went up to Jerusalem to worship. My accusers did not find me arguing with anyone at the temple or stirring up a crowd in the synagogues or anywhere else in the city, and they cannot prove to you the charges they are now making against me. In other words, in the few days at his disposal, he had had no time to foment an insurrection. He had had no intention of doing so either, since he went to Jerusalem as a pilgrim to worship, not as an agitator to cause a riot, and his accusers could produce no evidence that in temple, synagogue, or city he had caused a disturbance or even engaged in an argument. Secondly, Paul addressed himself to the charge that he was a ringleader of the Nazarene sect. This led him to affirmation as well as denial. Although he was indeed a follower of the way, this was not a sect, as they called it, for he worshipped the God of their fathers and believed the teaching of the Scriptures. However, I admit that I worship the God of our fathers as a follower of the way, which they call a sect. I believe everything that agrees with the law that is written in the prophets, and I have the same hope in God as these men, that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. So I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man. Here was Paul's public confession of faith. I confess. It consisted of 4 affirmations. 1, I worship the God of our fathers. 2, I believe everything that agrees with the law and the prophets. 3, I have the same hope in God as these men. And 4, I strive always. That is, the Jerusalem Bible puts it, I strive as much as they to keep my conscience clear. Paul's purpose in this was not just to make a personal declaration, however, but to insist that he shared it with the whole people of God. He worshipped the same God, the God of our fathers, believed the same truths, the law and the prophets, shared the same hope, the resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked, and cherished the same ambition to keep a clear conscience. He was not an innovator, therefore, but loyal to the ancestral faith, nor was he a sectarian or heretical deviant, for he stood squarely in mainstream Judaism. His worship, faith, hope, and goal were no different from theirs. The way enjoyed a direct continuity with the Old Testament, for the Scriptures bore witness to Jesus Christ as the one in whom God's promises had been fulfilled. The third accusation against Paul was that he had profaned the temple. This the apostle strenuously denied. After an absence of several years, I came to Jerusalem to bring my people gifts for the poor and to present offerings. I was ceremonially clean when they found me in the temple courts doing this. There was no crowd with me, nor was I involved in any disturbance. But there are some Jews from the province of Asia who ought to be here before you and bring charges if they have anything against me. Or these who are here should state what crime they found in me when I stood before the Sanhedrin. Unless it was this one thing, I shouted out as I stood in their presence, it is concerning the resurrection of the dead that I am on trial before you today. Far from desecrating the temple, Paul's purpose in visiting Jerusalem had been religious, to bring my people gifts for the poor and to present offerings. And his condition, when he was found in the temple doing this, had been one of ceremonial purity. There was no crowd and no disturbance. It was certain Asian Jews who had interfered with him and caused a riot, although Paul left his sentence unfinished. just when he was demonstrating his love for his nation and his respect for its laws. Why were these men not in court to press their charges? Their absence was a serious breach of Roman law, which was very strong against accusers who abandoned their charges. Since those Asian Jews were not there as witnesses, then those who were there should state of what crime the Sanhedrin had convicted him. The fact is that the Pharisees had declared him innocent of any crime. In 23 verse 9. Only the Sadducees thought him guilty, and that only of a theological belief concerning the resurrection of the dead. Next time, the adjournment by Felix. I'll put in a link to F. Bruce's discussion of the sects in Judaism in the days of Christ and the apostles, the Sadducees and the Pharisees in the days of Christ. See you next time.